Okay, so for the second tutorial now, we've already gone through, I've kind of described how I did all the manipulations to bring basically three separate files into Tinkercad through the program VMD. And what I'm going to do in this tutorial is I'm going to show you how I do the trimming of these four different pieces where we're going to link our molecules together. And that's here, 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 and here. I've taken, as I told you before in the previous tutorial, I brought in various components. One of the components I brought in was just showing the carbons that are part of the backbone where these linkages are going to be formed. And so I brought those in, and I've actually colored them differently. Again, I told you, you can't always get these to lie perfectly on top of each other. It doesn't really matter. I don't think the molecule is going to have that kind of level of perfection anyway. But what I'm going to show you today is how I would now go through and make clean cuts on these. And to do that, I'm going to have to kind of play a little game here. One thing we're going to do, again, you've got to kind of know how to use Tinkercad. If you hold down the Shift key and your right arrow key, you can kind of change the point of where your camera setting is at, so where you're viewing. And so you can move this around using those. You can also hold the right key on your mouse and basically move it around here. If you've got a scroll on your mouse, you can scroll in or out. So it does give you quite a bit of options, but you're going to need to be able to position yourself so you can see things. What I'm going to do is bring in a box. I'm going to probably make that box a specific size, maybe something like that. I may have to make another box. I'm going to play with this a little bit. I think I'm going to focus on this one right here. What I'm going to try and do is arrange that box in three-dimensional space so I can make a clean cut here. And that's going to be a little bit tricky, but we'll do it to begin with. I'll kind of show you how I would break away at this. I'm going to drag this up. I'm going to zoom in, hold my Shift key down, get this kind of set up. I'm going to bring my box over here so that it intersects through part of this region. And I'm going to raise it up a little bit. Make sure that I'm not cutting the piece underneath. One thing we're going to need to do at this stage in time is do some merging. And so we'll unmerge these when we're done. But for right now, I'm going to click on this piece, and I'm going to hold my Shift key down and click on this piece. I've got these colored different things, and I'm going to just group that. Then I'm also going to, I gotta wait for this to kind of finish up because it's merging those two pieces together. I'm going to grab that, kind of drag it away, just so you can see there's a piece underneath that. And I needed to do that just so I could see which piece is sitting on top. That was really there just for aligning these pieces. So I'm going to hit undo. I'm not even going to worry about that piece underneath because that piece underneath, again, it's not that important at this stage. What I am going to do is move this piece in a little bit. Make sure I'm not cutting off any of the piece that I don't want to remove, because we are going to have to do some trimming here once we're done. But I'm going to bring this in. Well, I got to make sure that I don't cut excess regions here. So one thing with this box tool you can do, you can turn this into a hole, and again I can kind of rotate this around. Because I want to adjust this a little bit. I'm going to bring this up a little bit more. What I'm trying to do is align this just perfectly so that it intersects right through that plane where these two balls meet. Actually, you can see we're pretty close. The goal of this is now when I do the other piece, I can do the same thing. I can just cut right through that region. And you can see I'd get a clean cut right through here. And I really am quite happy with that right now. If anything, I would maybe adjust that slightly just to make sure it's cutting and making a clean plane there. And a clean plane on this other side. And that's pretty close. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select this. So I'm selecting the background piece and select this, and I'm going to group them again. By doing that, I'm actually going to trim away this extra piece here. Now, again, I'm going to have a piece left underneath this. I told you there were 3 parts here. I'm going to change the color of that. Is that piece right there really isn't essential, right? So I'm going to do is delete that. I just don't need that. Everything else is aligned. I've got my other piece grouped right now. And so that's cutting a perfect little circle through here. One other thing I could do real quick if I wanted to is I could ungroup that. But we're going to do that at the end. I think you're going to see once I'm done with this, this is going to erase what's left of the carbon here. So we've got a nice smooth piece, and then we can kind of design how we're going to bring these together. That'll be another piece down the line. So I'm going to come in. You see I've got a little bit of extra material left down here just because of the way that my rectangle or my square kind of came together here. I can make this smaller. And I can bring this in the location of that piece, turn that into a hole again, so I can see and make sure that I'm not erasing any part of my molecule I don't want to destroy. As long as that piece right there is inside of that, I can again grab both of them, group them, and that should do away with that piece. And that's leaving me a nice clean cut right here. And again, this is just an artifact of the VMD program. I'm not really sure how to get around it. This is the trick that I use to do that. So I can get some nice sharp surfaces here. I'm going to do the other 3. I probably won't show you all of them. I'll do the next one real quick just so you can kind of see that. So I'll probably focus in on this one next. Again, you see there's flaws through this region, and that is one drawback of the software. But turn that into a hole. I'm going to kind of look and see how this is going to cut. hold my shift key down, kind of center this so it's where I can see it. This one's becoming a little bit tougher to see. So one thing I'm going to do really quickly is I'm going to grab this piece and hit ungroup. By doing that, that should break the two pieces into now we're going to have to ungroup it several times. I probably should have done this at the beginning to make it a little bit easier. What we can do is we can make that a hole for right now. That will allow us to take this piece, give it some color, so we can kind of bring it in. Maybe we'll make it a hole again. It's just going to make it easier to kind of see the two balls here, that are the two atoms here that we're trying to separate, so we can see just how well we're doing of intersecting these perfectly. You'll never get them exactly perfect. You can see that kind of lines up, so we can do that clean cut. I'm going to give this some color again. Now my only drawback is that I'm not making a nice clean cut through my piece here, but that plane should be just fine. So what we need to do is bring this up a little bit so that we know it cuts through. Just so we can see that the square here is intersecting again. That'll give us a clean cut. We'll still have to come back and get rid of this when we're done. I should be able to just click on this piece. You say I wanted to kind of get the two atoms separated just to make my life a little easier. Now if I grab these two, I can group those again. And I can grab this and this, group that. You'll see I'm still leaving the atoms behind, but that's okay, because again, what I'm going to do once I'm finished here is I'm going to actually take those out. Those were just reference points for my first little bit here of what we were going to do. Same thing down here. Grab this and this. Even these could become holes if we wanted to. That way you can kind of see your piece. But I'm just going to delete those when I'm done. Like I say, those are just reference points right now for making nice smooth cuts here. So we've got one left. Here for the last one, again, I've got kind of made this background as a whole so I can just see those two. And you can kind of see my box that's going to intersect those, making sure again that it's not cutting through anything more of this than that edge piece right there. Leave me a nice clean cut right through those two as well. If I do that, I would just be able to click on this, hold the shift key down, oops, hold the shift key down and select that one and hit group. And that should again trim off this piece but leave the ball piece intact. And so now I just hold on these and make those a hole. I don't want to make those holes, but I do want to be able to see exactly where everything lines up. The only other thing I'd like to do at this point is potentially put some peg holes in to each of these so that once I go to glue these, I can maybe take a piece of wire or something and actually kind of use that to hold the pieces together while they glue. And so that's something I'm probably going to do at this point as well. So what I'm going to do is zoom into each of these regions again. I'm going to create just a simple peg here. I'm going to turn my grid back on for a minute so that I can get these to a very specific size. I'm going to try and make them 2.5. So that piece is like that. It only needs probably be about 15 because the goal of this, I'm going to copy and paste this a couple times. I'm going to have 4 little peg holes that I'm going to insert in here. And I'm going to bring these up. Before I really do any other manipulations with it, I'm going to switch this over to 90 degrees. That'll allow us to kind of bring those together. What I'm going to do real quickly is make that a hole and grab this piece, that piece, and group it. That should just create a little hole in this. And I'll go ahead and fill that in with some model glue or something after the fact. That just leaves me something that I can attach everything together with at those points. The last piece I'll show you at the end, I'll put another peg in, a small peg, just so that we can, I might even just make it a hole as well, so that we can put something in between these to hold these in place. So I'm going to do that 2 more times, or 3 more times for these other 3 pieces, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, so I've gotten the 4 separate little holes here I'm going to use to kind of help glue these pieces together. I say I've had these sitting here kind of more for reference than anything for quite some time. I don't really need them anymore. I'm going to save my design really quickly, just in case I decide to change my mind here, but I don't think I will. I'm going to click on these and then just delete this, because I don't really need those pieces anymore. So now what I should have is all my segments ready to be printed, and kind of nice clean cuts that in my next pieces I can cut the same way, so these will butt up against one another the same. And I've got some holes here so I can put some pieces of wire in to hold those in place. The only other thing I want to do at this point in time is do some simple manipulation of this overall. So I'm just going to go through and rotate this, kind of to optimize it for printing. so that I'm not printing a whole lot of extra scaffold if I don't need to. That looks to minimize some of the excess plastic that the thing is going to have to print, at least on my 3D printer, to build the scaffolding that goes around this. It kind of gets things somewhat set up. Now the very last piece of what I would like to do is put a peg in that basically goes right into this surface, so that when I go to glue pieces together, I'll have something to kind of line this up with. I want to do that at each of the 4 different surfaces. So here I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to drag out a piece. I'm going to put my snap grid back on. And 1 centimeter. Copy and paste it a couple times, just so I can build my different pegs. We'll start off with it at 90 degrees. Zoom in to where I intend to put it. Turn off my snap grid so that I can orient this a little bit better. Turn it into a hole so I can orient it even better. Okay, so this is pretty much completed at this point, for this component anyway. As I said, what I've done is I brought this whole piece in. We've trimmed up the edges, so we've got nice smooth surfaces everywhere. I put a pinhole here, something I can use with a wire potentially to combine these. And I put another hole here so that I can kind of put some pegs in to kind of hold the different pieces in place so that we can glue along this surface. Again, I hope to have the same basic flat surface for this component to combine with the next component that we attach on here, so we can glue these together to get one complete piece that's oriented properly. And so at this point, this piece is pretty much completed. All we would have to do at this stage is print it out. Should be set up to our work plane. And so the only other thing we have to do after we save this is download it for a 3D print. And from there we'll print it out, and hopefully we'll get together a few more of these, and then we'll give a little bit of a demonstration of how we put these things together.